Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient, been dealing with cancer since 2021. And if you aren't already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, make a comment, click the bell for the notifications, and really helps the channel to grow because it helps to promote what our mission is. And I have a great advocate here with me, who I'll introduce in a second. But I just want to mention one last thing before we get into it. One of the people that I've interviewed, just a wonderful person named Mark Zabrowski, passed away this week. Please remember him in your prayers. I had the honor and the privilege to interview him, and just such a wonderful person. I did a post on LinkedIn about it. And if you have a chance, check my library of Zoom videos and look for Mark Zabrowski. And I think you'll enjoy it. So anyway, let's kick this conversation off. And I am so honored to have a friend of mine, Neubert Campbell, who we recently co-hosted, just she and I co-hosted on Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer. So that was a lot of fun with my friend, Dr. Janet Palmer. So, Erica, please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and let's get this thing going.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Erica Neubert Campbell. And I just actually want to pause first, Mark, and say thank you for recognizing your friend Mark's life. And I take those moments very seriously. And so I'm honored to be on the show and to also be at this special time to remember Mark as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So the way I've been describing myself, Mark, is I'm trying something new, a little bit unique. I will say I'm a powerful, authentic, loving woman. And I have many perspectives on this topic, which is cancer. So my first perspective is, as a breast cancer survivor myself, I also currently lead a nonprofit that helps kids with cancer and their families. It's called the Pinky Swear Foundation. We can talk about that. I also host a show that I had the honor of hosting with you, co-hosting, called Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer. And I also often refer to myself as a cancer orphan after losing my mother to breast cancer. Now, 20 years ago, Mark, it's 20 years ago that happened.
But with our people that we love so deeply in our families, the memory is so strong. It's like it happened yesterday.
Absolutely, Mark. And as you saw last week, it can still evoke super powerful emotions where I can cry on the spot, right? I mean, it is such a personal journey. And I've gotten lots of therapy and coaching on grief. And the best description I can have is like a clothes dryer, right? It spins and spins and spins and gets really hot and uncomfortable. And then it stops. And you think, okay, that's done. And then somebody presses a button outside of you, and the dryer starts up again, and you don't know when. But I always thought that was an interesting analogy because it's not a straight linear journey.
That's a great analogy. I've never heard that. So
yeah,
I may steal it.
Well, it makes me feel better about those moments like you saw on the show that we co-hosted, where I was like, wow, it's been 20 years and I can still cry when I bring up an emotion or a story that just like, somebody, it pressed a button for me. And so it just gives me the calmness to know that this is normal.
And it's so needed, and it's so necessary to be able to express these emotions and discuss these things, because that's how we grow and that's how we heal.
Yeah. So well said, Mark. It's what I love about the show, Perspectives on Cancer, Showing Up, is the healing power of stories. And, what I've learned over the years is that letting out those stories and having other people witness them is a huge step forward in any healing journey. because you feel validated, you feel seen, you feel heard, and you get to let it out.
And that's
You
such
know,
an important thing, and it's a
yeah,
very therapeutic thing that people need to embrace. Yeah, I love that, and it's whenever I do an interview, afterwards, I am just so I feel so fulfilled because it gives us a chance to meet new people and explore new people and also express our emotions as well.
yeah. And, I haven't met a story or an experience where you can't find at least a nugget of what I call, hashtag me too, right? There's always, even if, my favorite night now is Taylor Swift, right? She sings about heartbreak. And yeah, it's not mine, but we all have an experience of heartbreak. And there's just that relatability that a story can have for someone where it evokes that, oh yeah, I had that too. And again, it releases a little bit.
Let's talk about your mom and
Yeah.
what that experience was, because that's kind of like what's brought you, that is part of who you are today, a big part.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, Mark, I could talk about it forever. I think the challenging part for me, and obviously, we know you and I together, and each of us ourselves know people who've fought a cancer battle, and I've been processing it, as I said, now for 20 years. I think what was the hardest for me was when she was first diagnosed. There was a lot of trust we put in doctors who said, "Oh, this is nothing. This is such a breast." They called it like breast cancer light, meaning it was really small, and all the things that we were doing for her treatment were just like an insurance, right? Like she's going to be fine. This is just extra insurance, and how much trust we put in that. And her, like I said, her breast cancer started really small.
When
It came back.
exactly was this?
Sorry, excuse me. What was it?
When exactly did this happen?
Yeah, this started in, gosh, 2000. So, I was at the time like 25 years old at the start of my own career and my own life, my own, adulthood journey. And, I'd get these phone calls that were like, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it, Erica. Don't worry about it. She's just going to have a little bit of a surgery, a little bit of chemo. It's totally fine." And I believed that. And I know that a year later, this is actually pretty interesting. I was on a work trip to New York City. And Mark, I'm going to embarrass myself and say this is kind of before cell phones really were popular. And I'll never forget, I was at a different city than where I was living. I was in New York City for work. And I didn't tell very many people that I was there. Just, I was out there for a quick trip. And I was sitting in their like sort of, guest cubicle. And the receptionist paged me and she said, "There's a phone call for you." I'm like, nobody knows I'm here, but okay. So I pick it up. I think it's, related to my work, but it was my best friend from high school. I hadn't spoken to her in years. And I was like, "How did you get this number?" And she said, "Oh, I heard from your friends where you were." And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? And she said, "Have you talked to your mom today?" And at this point, I was like, okay, what is going on? It just gets real weird from here for me, Mark. And I had that pit in my stomach. And she said, "No worries, just call your mom right now, please." And I was like, "Tara, what is wrong? What is wrong?" She wouldn't tell me. And so I just think about that moment where, like, your world just changes. And so that's when things really started to go haywire for me. So I did call my mom, and she then explained that she had relapsed and it was far more serious, and that she'd already been to doctors, and just the fear that started that came up for me. I had trusted these doctors years ago to be like, "This is no big deal, no biggie." And just to have it come out of nowhere, blindsided.
So how did your friend find out about your mom?
I still, to this day, I actually need to go back and find out. I think they were trying to get a hold of me. My parents were. And they had the phone number of my best friend, who then called a friend of mine where I was living in Washington, D.C., who said, I think she's in New York, and it was just sort of one thing after the other. If you don't know anything about my best friend from high school, she's pretty relentless, because I was like, how did you get this number?
Well, things happen
Oh,
for a reason, and
yeah,
things happen for a purpose, and that was your purpose.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
you find out this news, and let's keep moving forward in the chronology of what happened. So what happened after all that?
Oh, well, that at that point, I was like, I shifted it into high drive, right? I was like, okay, now this is serious, and I've got to like be a good daughter, right? And so I spent the next year and a half commuting between Washington, D.C., and where my mother lived on Long Island, New York. And I would be there for her chemotherapy treatments, which were very aggressive at this point because she had relapsed so quickly and so surprisingly. And I remember the very first one, nurses are lovely and they're great. But it was about, closing time on the hospital chemotherapy floor. And she was inpatient. And they were like, it's time to go. Visiting hours are over. And I was like, that's cute. If you think I'm leaving this woman alone in a bed, no way. And so I convinced all the nurses, and I slept in the same twin bed. You know those twin beds in the hospital with like the sides that go up? She and I split the twin bed. And my mom the whole time was like, they're going to kick you out. I was like, oh, heck no, are they going to kick me out? And that's what I did for her entire chemotherapy treatment. I spent 2 to 3 nights in the hospital with her, sharing the twin bed, and up all night with her. And those are some of the most beautiful moments, Mark, that I can remember, just because we had such close, literally physically and emotionally close, quiet time.
That's beautiful.
And
That
oh, yeah.
that is irreplaceable, and I could relate to that as well. Being with my daughter for 2.5 months, my daughter Lisa, who is the one who vagabonds all over the United States.
Yeah.
So it was, to experience a part of adulthood with your mother is just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
And it was, yeah, thank you for saying that. It was just such not a confusing time, but a challenging time. And not just because my mom was sick and, I would take off from work for 2 to 3 days, but I was also trying to be, an up and coming career person and to try and date people. And, I was single at the time, and, all my friends are off, footloose and fancy free. And I felt like I had this like secret life, and I'd be out at parties or events with my friends, and I would just have this like dark cloud always over me, because I couldn't be present. It was just a really challenging time for me, emotionally. So
Wow.
yeah.
So as time goes on, is she getting worse? Is she changing? Is her personality changing? What's happening with all that?
Yeah. I mean, after that year of chemotherapy, they again once were like, we got it. We're good to go. And at this point, we celebrated her cancer free, but then about 6 months later, it came back again, Mark. And, so that roller coaster of like celebration, fear. And at this point, we're all pretty confused because again, we had that trust in the statistics, trust in doctors. And, gosh, I just remember just feeling so like, what is happening? And it had far spread to other parts of her body. And at this point, and this will come into my own story, is there's a lot of questions about had they done the right things? Because it was just so surprising at how aggressive her cancer was. And it came up that had she had a mastectomy from the very beginning, maybe she wouldn't have had all these relapses. And so, sort of lots of questions came up about her care. And I vowed to myself at this moment, but this is before she passed away, but, at this point, we kind of knew where things were going, that if I ever had breast cancer myself, I would always opt for a mastectomy first. Because just having the lump taken out opened up so many possibilities for relapse. And so that, sort of the precursor to my own story, Mark, which we can fast forward to.
Yes.
But yeah, she relapsed another 2 times. And at that point, it had spread so extensively to spinal fluids and skull and hips and bones. And, it took her life. And I was there for it too.
And you wouldn't trade that time for anything.
I would not trade that moment. It was like, and I say this so many times. If I knew that she was going to die on, January 19th, 2003, it was the best possible way, rather than like a car accident or a heart attack, right? I got this incredible opportunity to say goodbye. And it was, I told you, I spent that like twin bed with her when she was in active treatment. And she passed away literally in that similar twin bed with me right by her side. It was just the 2 of us. It was sort of like we started the journey together, we went through the tunnel, and we ended the journey together. It's the greatest gift, greatest
Wow.
gift.
That's
But it
so
does
beautiful.
change you as a human. It changes you as a human to literally, I watched her take her last breath and I literally closed her 2 eyes.
Wow. I can't even imagine that at all.
And the quietness of like, 11 o'clock at night, there was no nurses, there were no doctors. It was literally, Mark, just the 2 of us.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So there's no question that has transformed your life and opened up a new pathway for you, a new avenue for you. So let's move forward and talk about your experience, your direct experience.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, it changed me so profoundly to watch another human, especially when you care and love, leave this earth. But Mark, that cloud hung over me. I was like, she didn't have the cancer BRCA gene, but I pretty much was like assuming that I would get breast cancer too. Like I just because it had come back and come back and come back for her so often. So yeah, fast forward about 15 years, I was obviously under high scrutiny and I was very, very, very powerfully, I don't know, an advocate for myself to get a mastectomy quite regularly. I had to fight hard for that, especially I started getting mammograms when I was 30 because I was like, I need baselines and all that stuff. So PSA to all of your viewers for, self-advocacy on that. But eventually I was diagnosed. And I'll be honest that leading up to that, I had so much fear. And I had said to some of my, doctors, like, hey, I would really love to have a preventative mastectomy because I am so tired of these dang mammograms where they shove your boob in a vault and they take pictures and you wait and it's scary. And they said, no, you don't need it. You don't need it. That's too aggressive. You're not diagnosed. Well, sure enough, when I got my own diagnosis, Mark, I literally leaned into one of them, was like, I told you so.
So what were when you did get the diagnosis, what's going through your mind at that time? What was your mindset? Because you've already had the experience with your mother, so you know what that was like. Fast forward to when you got diagnosed, where was your mind at? Where were you at that moment?
I felt like I had a pen in my hand, Mark, and it was my time to rewrite the story. Honestly, like it was almost like an out-of-body experience. I mean, did I have fear? For sure. Was I in like, really dark places? Yes. But there was also this like level of clarity of like, I am rewriting this story in honor of my mom.
That is awesome. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah. And I remember sitting with my surgeon and he was like, okay, so we have some options for you. You could have this lumpectomy because we caught it early, or you could have a single mastectomy or a double mastectomy? And I was like, great, I know the answer. I would like a double mastectomy. And the guy was like, that is the fastest decision I've ever made. Do you want to talk about it more? I was like, no, I don't. Right. And I explained what had happened. And he was like, I get it. I get it. And Mark, it was the best decision I've ever made. Because yes, I am cancer free today. And what's more important is the fear cloud. I talked about that fear cloud. Like I can't relapse because I don't have, I can get other cancers for sure, but like I don't have breasts anymore, so I can't get a breast cancer. Like just it's like kind of impossible. So that to me has been the greatest gift, is the clearing of my mind. And as I said, the rewriting of the story. So, I mean, I do have, I have implants, I have fake breasts. They look great. I'd show them all if I could.
We'll take your word for it, Eric.
Take my word for it. But yeah, I mean, it's just, for me, it was such a powerful way to rewrite the story.
That is beautiful. I just love to hear that. I love the conviction. I love your fierceness to move forward in that way. That is so great. So you did all this with your own personal journey, but out of that experience has segued you into the cancer world with all the people involved in that, and you're a very prominent person in that because that's what you do for a living.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, Mark, interestingly, even before my mother was diagnosed, so well before that, I had an opportunity, a gift to volunteer as a summer camp counselor at a summer camp for children with cancer. And those experiences, well, even before my mother was diagnosed, were so transformative for me. This is when I was, 20 years old, 21, 22, 23. I got far more than I gave. And to see a child who is, just facing their own mortality, facing really incredible odds, facing, awkward moments about losing their hair or losing a limb. I had decided to dedicate my life at that age, in my early 20s, to supporting like anyone facing a cancer diagnosis. Like that became clear that was gonna be my life purpose. And to be honest, when my mom was diagnosed, I kind of was like, well, I'd already decided that, so this is good. And I have seen it from so many angles now, and
so my question for you at this point is, how much of what you do today, who you are today, how much is your mom, and how much is your personal input into this? Please, if you could talk about that.
Yeah, it's a really powerful question, Mark, and thank you for asking that. I mean, I almost want to say 50-50. And the reason I'm almost sad about that answer is that, my mother's life was cut far too short. And so I only got 50% of probably what I should have had, in a lifetime from her. But the other 50% is really myself, right? And the expression of, my commitment that I made in my early 20s, but also my expression of my desire to be a powerful legacy for my mom.
I love that. That's a beautiful answer. And I was wondering about that as we were approaching this interview. I was curious as to what is your source of inspiration, and how much of it. I mean, this cancer journey is unique to each person. Everybody travels a different road, no matter, it's just inevitable because everybody's cancer is different, but also every person is a different person and how they react to the journey. And that's always a fascinating thing to me. And I mean, this is, we've heard it many times that this is a group that you don't want to join, but once you do join, some of the most incredible people on earth, without a question. And I'm just blown away by that.
Yeah. And that is what I found, Mark, when I began this journey, like I said, as a summer camp counselor. And I know that may sound like all fun and games, but it wasn't, right? We had 100 kids battling cancer and a team of probably 50 counselors and physicians. And many of them were, cancer patients or survivors themselves. And it becomes this community of people who understand a life purpose that's just a little bit clearer than others.
Well said. Well
And that
said.
vulnerability and that authenticity is so magical. I call that like the superpower in life, right? You never want to think that vulnerability and authenticity can be sources of strength, but they are. And that's what I love about that community. And, people like you and I get to uplift those that may not feel that at the start of their journey or even middle or end, right? In that it can be that silver lining. There can be a silver lining. It's my favorite question.
Yes. Yeah. So that brings us to something very important. Let's talk about what you are doing now and what's going to be coming up here shortly.
Yeah, I got a lot of things in the cooker, Mark. Well, it's interesting. There's my professional work, and I can talk a little bit about that in the Pinky Swear Foundation. And then I've got another initiative about spreading this message about, sort of, I would say, the benefits of a mastectomy in this very niche opportunity for breast cancer women facing the choice between a lumpectomy and a mastectomy. Here's the things: I can't cure cancer. That is not my gift. That is not my journey. I wish it was, or maybe not. I don't know. But like, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a physician. And so, but I am a doer, Mark. I love to do things. So in my work, I lead what's called the Pinky Swear Foundation. And what I love about it is it's not cancer research. It is actually direct service to families with a child battling cancer, keeping that promise to help them with their bills. Like, I can't cure cancer, but I can pay your mortgage. I can pay your rent. I can get you to and from treatment by paying your car bill, your car payments, and I can put food on the table. Like, I love that directness of the service, that it's a tangible thing I can do. Right? Like when you hear someone is newly diagnosed, like everyone's like, what can you do? What can I do? Nobody wants to say, can you pay my bills? Because I don't want to work anymore. I want to be with my child. So that to me is like something I can do. I love that. And what else can I do? I can host a podcast, right? I can host these beautiful stories, this podcast showing up perspectives on cancer and work with people like you and Tim and others for the healing opportunity of stories. I can do that. And then the third thing is this book that's coming out. So it's going to come out in the fall.
I was wondering if you're going to get there or not.
I'm going to get there. I am going to get there. I am nervous as all heck about it, Mark. And that's okay. And that's when you're playing big, right? Because I joked earlier, I'm happy to show you my reconstructed fake breast. Well, this book does, Mark. It's got a couple of elements. It's a look into some of my journaling that I wrote before and during the decision to have this mastectomy. And it's very personal, very private. But hey, it's going to be read by hundreds of thousands of women and caregivers. Great. But it's also an opportunity to show the photos of what my breasts look like before, during, like days after the surgery, and then today. And the reason I did that, talk about vulnerability, right? I'm a very professional woman. I don't go around, showing these things. But I want women to know it's going to be okay. And it's not something you can Google. Like, these photos are not readily available, and I wished I'd had them. My surgeon at the time would say, I know this scar looks really ugly, but trust me. And, we started talking about trust. Like, I was like, I have been told to trust a doctor many times before. great, thank you. And let me work through that. So this is an opportunity for me to give the gift that just to give women confidence and to give them the encouragement it's going to be okay.
That is so needed and so awesome. Part of what we do is we uncover these nuggets of information for people. And sometimes uncovering those nuggets means things that people don't want to talk about.
Yes.
We deal with people dying, that's a natural part of life and a natural part of the cancer community. But it's something we embrace because not everybody's going to make it, but we have to embrace and enjoy and salute the ones that do. And so that's so critical to give people hope, and to give recognition to the community that we're in.
Yeah. And again, and Mark, this is a true story. I got a phone call yesterday from a friend of mine who just got diagnosed with breast cancer. And she said, she's having a meeting with a surgeon today. And she said, I don't know what to do. They're going to make me choose between a lumpectomy and a mastectomy. And I was like, you know what? Here's a draft of my book. And you get to make your own choices and you get to make your own decisions. I am simply, going to share my journey and share my story. But that to me was like, again, Mark, something I can do. And I don't know where her journey will go. And I can't predict the outcome, but here's what I can do right now, which is just provide hope and say it's going to be okay, no matter what.
And I love that. And that's exactly my approach too, is I will put the information on the table and you choose or choose not to use it or do it or whatever. I think it's most important that we realize we are information providers, hope providers, but the way human nature is, and if you look at our country at this point in time, about people getting information shoved down their throat, everybody's tired of it. So if we can just say, here, this is what we did, and you could choose or not to choose this same route, but at least you now have this information.
Yeah. And there's nothing I want more. As I said, I just want to dedicate my life to serving and helping others, particularly those facing a cancer battle. It's really simple.
That is absolutely awesome, Erica. And let's kind of wrap this up by getting a final thought. What would you like to leave our audience with as far as this interview goes?
One of the mantras that I've been working on, Mark, is that it just says you already have everything you need. And, like you have friends, you have support, you have the knowledge, you have the self-trust, you already have everything you need, and it's going to be okay.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Thank you so much, Erica Neubert Campbell, for sharing this time with me and sharing your thoughts. I mean, even though we've known each other a while already, I've learned a lot. And thank you. Thank you so much for sharing and for doing such great work with Tim Sohn on showing up perspectives on cancer. I always enjoy the people that are on the show, the live stream, and we all, this journey is about learning, and I'm always excited to learn and hear stories, and so that's what keeps me going. But I'd like to thank everyone for joining us here today on To Be Your Own Hero. And I always like to end with a couple of quotes, and this is from Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. The first one is, be humble, be big in mind and soul, be kindly. You will like yourself that way, and so will other people. And the second quote is, throw your heart over the bar and your body will follow. And that's exactly what Erica does on a daily basis. So thank you, Erica, so much for your time and for joining us here on To Be Your Own Hero. Make the most out of every single day. Every single day is precious. Every single hour, every single minute, and every single breath. Once again, please subscribe, like, make a comment in the comment section of the video, and have an incredible week. And we will see you next week on To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you very much.